Straight to business now. Brian Quinn is with us. He's returning to one of our top stories of the day. That's signing the major natural resources deal between the US and Ukraine. That deal outlining a new investment fund for Ukraine's reconstruction. Tell us exactly then how it's going to work.
So, Stuart, the deal will give the US privileged access to develop Ukrainian resources like aluminum, graphite, oil, and natural gas. The US-Ukraine Reconstruction Investment Fund, as it's called, will be jointly managed by the two countries, each with a 50% stake in it. The US, though, will have first rights to profits generated by the extraction of those resources. That is intended as compensation for future American contributions to Ukraine's security, things like air defense systems. It will not, however, be used to reimburse Washington for past military aid, and that is only after 10 years. For the first decade, all profits from that fund are expected to be reinvested back into Ukraine. The deal contains no specifics on Ukrainian debt obligations to the U.S., and Ukrainian state firms like its national oil and gas company, as well as its nuclear power company, will stay in Kyiv's hands. It's a much better deal for Ukraine than the one Donald Trump had been pushing Volodymyr Zelensky to accept when Zelensky came to Washington back in February. Trump had been pushing for Ukraine to repay the U.S. some $500 billion for previous aid. Ukraine's prime minister emphasizing that equal footing as he hailed the deal on Wednesday. Here he is.
It is truly an equal, solid international agreement on joint investments in the development and reconstruction of Ukraine between the government of the United States and the government of Ukraine. The American side can count new military aid to Ukraine, I repeat, only new aid, as a contribution to the fund.
Well, the deal comes as the US is scrambling to secure access to rare earth minerals amid the Trump administration's trade war, of course, with China.
So that U.S.-China trade war has been escalating in recent weeks. We'll remember that on April 2nd, Trump announced what he called reciprocal tariffs of 34% on Chinese imports to the U.S. That would be on top of the 20% tariffs that were already in place at the time. Retaliation from Beijing and subsequent counter-retaliation from Washington has seen U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods go as high as 245%, with Chinese tariffs on U.S. goods reaching 125%. Tariffs, though, are not China's only card to play. The country controls the extraction and refinement of nearly 90% of the world's rare earth metals, substances like lithium, graphite, and neodymium that are crucial to high-tech applications like electric vehicles, microchips, and jet engines. China has since imposed strict export controls on those minerals as part of its response to the Trump tariffs. U.S. companies do have stockpiles, but they're likely only enough to last for a couple months. Experts say Washington is well aware of its strategic vulnerability on rare earths and is doing everything it can to reduce reliance on China for them. Let's take a listen here.
People on the defense side of the establishment and the U.S. government are quite concerned. The producers who are making airplanes, who are making armaments, who need some of these critical materials, it can become a very serious impediment in the supply chain to manufacturing, defense-related products.
Onto the markets then, Brian. How are they shaping up?
Been a mixed picture for Asian indexes on Monday. Investors taking a look at Wednesday's data showing a contraction in U.S. GDP last quarter as a warning of a potential looming recession there. The Nikkei in Tokyo, though, gaining just over 1% after the Bank of Japan decided to hold interest rates steady as officials brace for economic fallout from those Trump tariffs. The BOJ downgrading its growth projections for the year from 1.1% to just 0.5%. Exchanges in China and South Korea are closed for the Labor Day holiday. Australia, though, seeing its benchmark index climb about 0.25% amid news of a growing trade surplus there. Most European exchanges are also closed Thursday for Labor Day. London, though, is trading. The FTSE 100 losing a bit of ground at the open. It's down just around 0.1%.
Now, finally for business, got some bad news. For the French economy, this is consumer spending has fallen to a 10-year low.
French shoppers reduced their spending a full percent in March, bringing consumption to its lowest level since 2014. Purchasing power is on the decline amid renewed inflation in supermarket prices in particular. Meanwhile, savings is on the rise amid a grim outlook for both the national and global economies. Liza Kamenov and our colleagues at France Télévisions report.
Consumers in France are becoming increasingly frugal when it comes to filling their fridges. Consumption has reached a new low since November 2014, excluding the COVID period, with shopping baskets not filling up due to eye-watering prices.
I've stopped buying yogurt in big quantities, in packs of 6 or 8.
Inflation held steady at 0.8% year-on-year in April, but food prices have increased, particularly for chocolate and sugar-based products such as soft drinks. Clothing sales were particularly down in March, as was spending on energy and buying new cars. At this dealership in the Paris region, sales have fallen by almost 8% since the start of the year.
There's a switch going on between new and second-hand vehicles, with customers switching to vehicles that are a little older and perhaps a little more affordable.
Sectors appear to be running out of steam, paralyzing growth, and the uncertainty of the global economic situation is prompting French consumers to save money rather than spend it.
Households have savings as a whole, and if they start to save less, then there may be reserves for consumption and growth. But for that to happen, they need to project themselves positively into the future. And even today, given the national and international uncertainties, that seems very difficult.
Despite the economic stagnation, the French government is keeping its growth forecast for 2025 at 0.7%.
So you've got those falling consumption figures as well as some budget cuts incoming from the French government. Some headwinds, you might say, for the French economy, Stuart.
Certainly are. Brian, thanks very much. Brian Quinn with Business.